Hey everybody, welcome to the Joint Special Operations University Fireside Chat. I'm your host, Mike Lundstrom, and I'm here with a special guest, Dr. Robert Burrell from University of South Florida. Welcome to the chat. It's glad
Thanks,
to have
Mike.
you.
Yeah.
So just a little context on our guest here. He wrote a book for JSAL Press called Resistance and Resilience. It's over 500 pages. I'll get into that in a minute. But I just kind of want to give you a little bit of background on Dr. Burrell here. So he's a resilience, resistance, interdisciplinary scholar. I'm surprised he even got that out. And you are currently at the University of South Florida as a senior research fellow for Global and National Security Institute. Is that correct?
Yep.
And you have a history working with us for a few years, 2024, doing a lot of irregular warfare content and discussions with our students. You also did some time with the U.S. Naval Academy, which is pretty impressive in itself. Yeah.
Good years.
And what I didn't know about you, even when you were here, is you're a former Marine.
That's right.
I like to say retired, but there's no such thing as
Not in the Marine
you
Corps.
be retired, but you're a former Marine. And you have about 12 years of Asia Pacific experience, which I think is going to lend itself pretty relevant to this chat session here, because we're going to talk a few things. And before we get into the topic of resilience and resistance, can you just talk a little bit about the book here? I'm going to read a couple things from the contents. This thing's over 500 pages long. It covers the resilience resistance model that you talk about in here, but it goes into areas of irregular warfare. It uses case studies from around the world, talks about fragility. Whew, this thing's pretty good. It has there's these 3 history case studies from Cuba, Laos, and Tibet that all lend itself into this model. There's a little piece on Colombia from the 2002-2006 era. So just a whole bunch of stuff in here. Many authors put together. Some of the names I know personally, some really, really good people. So if you could just talk a little bit about getting this together and how you got to this point, because this is pretty impressive.
Sure. I worked here at the university 2020 when I retired from the Marine Corps through 2024. I had already done a stint on active duty out of the headquarters, and I had a pretty good human network on irregular warfare expertise, mostly from special forces community. And so when I got here, I looked at the curriculum and trying to figure out what's the best way to teach irregular warfare. And I struggled through it for about a year, what should I have the students read? What's really out there? Trying to get the practitioners to be able to understand academic concepts that they could actually employ in the field. And then in 2021, Congress came out with the Consortium to Study Irregular Warfare Act.
I remember that.
And I looked at all the things they asked for, and this is what they asked for. They wanted something to teach practitioners the art of irregular warfare, and there was nothing out there. And so I had this same experience when I was teaching at the Naval Academy. So 2003, 2004, I taught the history of the Marine Corps course. There's no Marine Corps history course textbook. So I wrote it, and published it. And so I looked at this topic and I was like, wow, we really need something. In fact, David Brown, who's over at the Naval War College, had voiced the same thing to me. We had talked about it many times. His students going through Naval War College, there was no textbook on irregular warfare concepts. How do you really go about doing this? The case study analysis and having it all tie together. And so for the last 4 years, I've been working on this with other folks that I taught with at JSAL, including other JSAL instructors and professors like Brian Pettit, who's got a great reputation in the field, but also with folks that I bring in for mentorship, like General Charles Cleveland.
Yeah, I work for him.
Oh, great! Yeah, he's got an amazing reputation.
Yes, he is.
And other folks from National Defense University, like David DiOrio and Tom Marks, and Chris Marsh, who's over there now, who's another JSAL alumni, great guy, and able to kind of tie everything together in a way where you understood not just irregular warfare, but deterrence and competition, right? Which I see as three different spaces. So they do interact with one another. There's gray lines between them, but those three components are things that really we don't understand very well, and there's irregular activities happening in all of those. And so that's what this book goes about doing, and I hope it's got a great reception so far. So I hope I hit the mark.
I think you did. In fact, if maybe I had one criticism for our community, not for you, this might be 20 years late to the party, right? When we're trying to figure out the early beginnings of Iraq and Afghanistan. Not a critique on whether we should be there or not, or anything like that, but it's just like, did we truly understand the populations? Did we truly understand legitimacy? And we can talk about those things down the road.
Well, there's been a lot of great work done that people haven't looked at too.
Yeah.
This whole book's dedicated to Paul Tompkins. If anybody knows Paul Tompkins, he was the G3X at USASOC, and he did this assessing resilience, resistance and insurgent strategies, whole list of research publications that he did with Johns Hopkins University. So they leveraged the talent at Johns Hopkins to publish all these RSOF publications, which were all academic in nature. Yeah. And those are used throughout here. And, Paul's been a longtime mentor to me. And so people have been doing good work, but kind of just bringing it all together. I think this is the first time it's been done.
No, that's great. So my hope, at least doing this chat right now, is that, like you said before, can we put this in the hands of the practitioner?
Exactly.
And so let's get after it. Let's break some of this down and sort of baseline them a little bit, and we'll get into a few case studies, if you will. Yeah. If you're good with that. So let's talk about resilience and resistance in the context here. Back against the McCormick model as well as the baseline, right?
Yeah. So, McCormick wrote about the Shining Path insurgency in Peru.
Right.
It's a RAND publication. This is not like this huge, monster publication that most people know about. But if you talk to SF, they almost don't know. They almost all know McCormick's.
Sendero Luminoso. They know it well.
They know McCormick's work, right? So like he hit something. He's on to something, right? So I looked. He put an insurgency model together. So it was all about insurgency. And what I did is I looked at the model and I said, this isn't just insurgency. This is all the way through nonviolent resistance. Yeah. This is through belligerency. It's through violent or illegal forms of resistance. All types of resistance use this same type of strategy, and so this became this evolved into the resilience and resistance model. So the two major nodes are resilience, which is government mostly, but governmental and societal resilience. They're trying to keep the status quo, right? And then you have resistance. And so the resistance is trying to change the status quo in some way. It could be complete overthrow of the government, but it might not be that. It might just be equal rights or some other things that they might be fighting for. And these are the two nodes that are really dynamic in this relationship. And then you have the population. And so as these two nodes are combating each other, they're also trying to influence the population, right? And then, one of the things that I added from McCormick's model is that the population is not just inactive; it also is influencing both resistance and resilience. So it has its own agency in the model, right? So it's affecting the area, the space within the model. And then you have the international audience. So the international audience could be another state that's either sponsoring resistance or resilience. It could be a corporation. It could be the diaspora, right? So if you're looking at the insurgency that occurred in Ireland, right, with the Irish Republican Army, what was the largest diaspora that was supporting them? Not United States.
Yeah.
It was United
Boston.
States. Yeah.
Boston.
I mean, you would go into bars, Irish bars, and there was a jar.
Yeah.
Hey, this is for our friends in Ireland, right? By the way, there's 4 times as many Irish in the U.S. as there is in Ireland.
I learned that the hard way when I attended a St. Patrick's Day parade in Dublin years ago, and found out they were all from Boston, New York, and Savannah.
That's right. So, I mean, these 4 nodes are all affecting the environment, and they're looking for change within the state. And this is what's so important. So, when I talk about resilience and resistance, it's intrastate conflict. It's the conflict happening within a state. It might be internationalized, where there's external sponsors, to either resilience or resistance, but it's inside the state. And that type of model is somewhat different than a lot of models that people are looking at right now. But I accept them all. If you want to use resilience and resistance in a European context, our friends in NATO don't like to think that there's any resistance in their country. So it all has to be like some external threat. But there's internal threat happening throughout the globe. There's 60 countries right now having intrastate conflict on our globe. And what are we doing about it? How are we prepared to support that? Because those countries that are having conflict is going to affect the future of our children in our country. It's not just the war in Ukraine, right? Which is just one major conflict that's state on state. All these other things are happening around the globe, and we can not participate in those or not pick a side, but we should be doing the preparation environment so that we can step in when we need to.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because when I look at the spectrum here, I realize that, depends to what level it rises to that gets our attention, whether it be against U.S. national interest or not. So if I look at the spectrum, it's peaceful demonstration to belligerency and everything in between.
Yeah.
And then are they in the circle or out of the circle? Right?
Well, I mean, it's Mark Gerdovic, who just came out with a great book, by the way. I haven't read it, but Mark's a good friend, and he's a big thought leader in this field. He had written up a really great summary of the potential of a resistance actor, right? And when the U.S. is looking at a resistance actor, and if they want to support that resistance actor, there's a whole calculation that has to go through. If this is an acceptable, useful partner to really have U.S. interests forwarded to support national security strategy, right? And a lot of those groups don't meet that criteria, right? They're not partners that we would want to partner with. However, there are some great ones. And so when you're looking at the spectrum of, either nonviolent resistance through, insurgency and civil war, some of those actors on that field might be great partners for us to really kind of get our national security strategy completed. And some of those you might like, no, I can't. If you can't swallow it, right? If you can't swallow that relationship and be like, yeah, these are not good people, or U.S. population wouldn't support them. So you have to go through that dynamic. But also, if you're supporting your ally who is facing a problem with resistance domestically, we should also be looking at those resistance elements to figure out where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses. If we wanted to help our ally with subverting resistance, what are the best ways to do it? And so there's just this categorization of resistance helps us kind of look at resistance elements and figure out, oh, this one uses nonviolent and legal means of resistance. So shooting them probably won't be the best, strategy, right? So and
hopefully not.
This whole nonviolent piece is the part that the DoD is struggling with. How do I use the DoD when rounds aren't flying?
Yeah.
The DoD has been doing a terrible job for years on how to deal with this. And so that's what this book gets after, is other ways, other tools in the bag where you can influence the world and where it's going, but with nonviolent means.
And for DoD, it depends where the priorities lie too sometimes, because we have a big VEO piece that we take care of and look after over here at SOCOM, but there's also strategic competition and deterrence. And then all the swinging around to those focuses that sometimes we take our eyes off things. Yeah. Right. Like, GWAT, we kind of maybe took our eyes off of China a little bit.
Right. Many times we're doing great stuff. Yeah. Cobra Gold's a great example.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're doing great stuff, been doing it for years. We don't really, most people participating don't really understand what are the national objectives being accomplished, which are huge. Yeah. Right. Having that partner, that ally in Thailand, I use that term ally because a lot of Americans don't know we're allied with Thailand. Our ally in Thailand, that exercise really facilitates so much U.S. goodwill in that area and partnerships with a lot of different partners. And it's a very important exercise that we do every single year. And so are we getting the most out of that, right? So when I was at the embassy in Australia, I used to take visitors to Marine Rotational Forces Darwin, and I'd have different U.S. or Australian senior leaders meet there, and I'd coordinate the news to show up. And the reason why I did all that was I'm messaging China, right? So all those same things could have happened without any messaging.
Yeah.
So we just need to take advantage of opportunities that we have, Cobra Gold, other things that we do, and ultra focus lens that we do in Korea and other activities, Balakatan in the Philippines, that we're really making the most out of our relationships. One more point about China.
We're going to go down that road on China here for sure.
The South China Sea,
yep.
which is a battleground right now, right? We are making a lot of friends. Thank God for the South China Sea. I used to work for a general who used to say that, and it shocked me the first time. He was like, thank God for the South China Sea.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of friends, right? So are we taking advantage of that? I mean, China is like like a bull in a china shop right now, just kind of going around with their South China, pursuing their South China Sea policy by making everyone else, scared of them, whether the Vietnamese or Indonesians or whoever else. Are we really taking advantage of that in ways that might not require violence?
Well, yeah, there's a couple different things going on there, and we're going to go down this rabbit hole here.
Sure.
But just to make a point, Indonesia just joined BRICS.
Yeah.
Right. To get away from the petrodollar, and well, maybe that's not their reasoning, but they're too close to the topic of it. But but security partner wise, not the preferred choice. Us.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a weird mix over there in the South China Sea with a lot of things.
Yeah. I think one of the Indonesian slogans was "Land of 1,000 allies and no enemies" or something. So
yeah,
I mean, they do want to partner with a lot of people. But they're not exclusive.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We have a pretty good economic tie with them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see how it all plays out. But we're going to go down that road to China here in a second. I want to baseline one more thing for them, and that is in context. We don't have to use the Joint Pub or DoD definitions here, but irregular warfare. And for anybody who's listening to this, let's baseline irregular warfare, and then also UW alongside that. To me, it falls underneath the irregular warfare umbrella, but it's completely different.
Yeah.
In the sense of, so if you want to talk to that a little bit, and we'll kind of build it together.
So the spectrum of resistance, or the spectrum of conflict that is in the book, shows four major areas of conflict that align within quadrants, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one is deterrence, right? So you're using your conventional force or your nuclear force for deterrence. That's the normal way to use it. Then you have conventional conflict, where you're using the exact same force to do conventional warfare. Underneath deterrence, you have competition. So this is where you're competing with other folks, but it's below the echelon of major warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have irregular warfare. So the bottom half of the model is really where irregular means are being used, right? Whether it's FID or foreign internal defense, whether it's unconventional warfare, whether it's security force assistance, whether it's counterterrorism, whether it's unconventional warfare. It's all happening on the bottom side of that model. So I think those activities go from competition through irregular warfare. And they're happening. It doesn't mean that it all starts on one end or the other. It just means some of your activities are nonviolent, and some of your activities are violent. Or if you're doing counterinsurgency, right, or stability operations, you really want most of your activities to be in the competition area where you're winning without violence. But in some ways, you're going to get into irregular warfare. So I still see irregular warfare as violent, as well as 99% of the world, right? If you're going to use the term warfare, it means something, right? And I think the DoD is confusing itself right now, and everyone else.
I think there's more confusion than, and that's a fair assessment, right? Yeah. So you talked about a few things, and we'll just talk about below the threshold of war.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we'll put in there in gray zone activities.
Sure.
But we tend to take that model and overlay it on competitors, adversaries,
Sure,
whatever.
yeah,
and
only
say,
they do gray zone.
oh yeah, and they see it differently because I think if you ask China, they would say, well, this is a type of warfare for them.
Yeah.
It's non-kinetic,
Yep.
right? And their red line for going to war may be a lot different than ours.
It's the same with lawfare, right? We are looking at other countries and we're using lawfare in a negative sense. The country who used lawfare the best is us. We're using lawfare all the time. The whole international order is based upon the legal law framework that we've set up, all these international laws. So we're the best enforcer of those systems against competitors. We've been doing that for a long time. But when I look at the 4 zones I talked about, which was deterrence, conventional war, competition, and irregular war, where all those things meet is either hybrid warfare or gray zone.
Yeah.
Right? So the center of the target when you're in competition is either hybrid warfare or gray zone. That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, right? Which, Russia really exemplified when they took over Crimea, right? They used the gray zone. They used hybrid warfare very, very effectively. And so when that model, I think, is a much better model to look at conflict than the current model that we have in the DoD, which goes peace to war and everything in between. We got to stop thinking one-dimensional.
Yeah.
It's more than one dimension.
Well, we use phasing models.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
and
another one,
you could argue that we've been in phase 1 for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
You could. I mean, it's like
right.
phase 0, phase 1, whatever. Let me just throw a few more definitions out there for the audience, because we do have a broad audience, and my hope is that these type of academic discussions get into the team room. And we talked about foreign internal defense.
Bravo team room.
Yeah. Foreign internal defense. We talked about security force assistance and insurgency, counterinsurgency, right? So if I was going to go say, if I was going to go help Mexico or Thailand or somebody with an internal issue, whether it be a small uprising, a transnational criminal element or whatever, that's foreign internal defense. If there is a border dispute or an outside element, I might be part of a security force assistance, which is a much broader, larger type of activity that we would help them with, but it wouldn't necessarily be that. For the insurgency and counterinsurgency, the only people that own the counterinsurgency is the host government of that nation. So
unless you're the occupying force.
Unless you're the occupying force. So when we took over Afghanistan that first year, we were the occupying force. We put provisional governance in and we owned it. But as soon as the host nation government stood up, we became foreign internal defense, supporting to them. Right or wrong, different. Not trying to go down those roads, but I just kind of want to clear up
Afghanistan.
I just want to kind of clear up those definitions a little bit and understand. So, because you walk around and say, hey, we're helping with an insurgency there. Well, so what are you doing? Counterinsurgency. No, you're doing foreign internal defense. They own the counterinsurgency.
You hope you're doing foreign internal defense.
You hope it. Yeah, you hope. Yeah, we could. There's that's another hour fireside chat just
sometimes
to talk about those
partners'
things.
Toys don't look as good as yours. You don't use your partner's toys, and you keep using your own. Some of that going on.
It might blur a little bit, but just academically, those are your definitions. So when we talk about some of these things down the road, we're kind of baselined here. Did I leave anything out?
Oh well, UW.
We didn't get to UW, right? Yeah. So unconventional warfare, and that is coerce, disrupt, or overthrow a government that is contrary to national interest. Don't want to say U.S. national interest because I don't think we like to engage in those activities overtly, but at the same time, we may support somebody else. It just depends.
We were successful in both Iraq and in Afghanistan because of unconventional warfare.
That's right.
Yeah. It was probably
the image of the horseback, right?
All the things we did, that was the most important forms of warfare.
The horseback soldier, special forces on horseback. It was a good symbol of that.
That's right.
The beginnings
they
of
got
that.
great whiskey too.
Yeah, they do. That's good. But yeah, so those are the things that occur. But precise words used precisely. So it's very important we understand that. So anyway, thanks for giving me a moment to just kind of baseline that a little bit.